All right, let's dive right in. Today we're tackling a question that, in a world totally obsessed with results, feels a little dangerous to even ask. It's a simple one, really. What can philosophy actually do for us?
And you got to admit, it's a fair question, right? In a world that's all about practical skills and things you can measure, what's the point? You've got this ancient practice, thousands of years old, up against a world of instant gratification and, well, endless economic pressure. So, where does it fit in? What's its value, if any?
The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche didn't see this as some dusty academic debate. For him, it was personal. It was urgent. He basically asks, okay, so what do we do with our lives once we admit we've been, well, pretty clueless about everything? I mean, that's a question that gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it?
But then you have this huge counterpoint from Karl Marx, and this really sets up the main conflict we're going to explore. Marx was like, look, thinking about the world is fine and all, but that's not the point. The point is to change it. And from that perspective, philosophy starts to look like a pretty useless luxury, especially when the world so clearly needs fixing. Okay, so if we're going to figure out what philosophy can do for us, we've got to first get a handle on the world it exists in. And that world, well, it's pretty much dominated by one single, powerful idea, what we'll call the logic of the market.
And listen, this isn't just about shopping or the stock market. We're talking about a way of thinking that has seeped into everything. It's become the main way we figure out what's valuable, from our jobs and education, all the way to our friendships and relationships.
So how does this market logic work? Well, it's pretty simple. It basically says if something is valuable, you can put a price tag on it. And if you can't, well, it's probably not that valuable. So things like wisdom or just quiet contemplation, they get pushed to the side. Thinking for its own sake becomes a silly little product, and anytime you're not making money or being productive, that's just wasted time.
And here's a perfect example of how this has changed our thinking. Take the word leisure. For the ancient Greeks, leisure, or asio, was this incredible, noble thing. It was the time you set aside to, cultivate your spirit, to better yourself. But today, we call it idleness. It's seen as a negative, a void. It's just time not spent working. That's it. The market has totally flipped the script on how we value our own free time.
So if that's the world we're living in, what are we supposed to do? How do we even navigate it? Well, to find a different way of looking at things, we're going to go back to ancient Greece for this really fantastic analogy about how people approach life.
Okay, so picture this. A huge festival, like the ancient Olympic Games. The philosopher Pythagoras noticed that you basically have three kinds of people who show up. And he realized, hey, this is a perfect metaphor for life itself.
So here are the three groups he saw. First, you've got the merchants. They're there to buy and sell, to make a buck. That's the life of profit. Then you have the athletes. They're there to compete, to win, to get all the glory. That's the life of ambition. But then there's a third group, the observers. They aren't there to sell anything or to compete. They're just there to watch, to take it all in, to understand. And that, Pythagoras said, is the philosophical life.
And this is where it clicks back to our world, right? Because our society overwhelmingly celebrates those first two groups. We're taught from day one that the whole point of life is to either make money, like the merchants, or get famous and powerful, like the athletes. That third path, the path of the observer, it's almost completely forgotten. Or worse, it's just dismissed as a waste of time.
Which brings us to the real heart of the matter. If philosophy isn't about getting rich or famous, then what in the world is it for? Well, the answer is kind of surprising, and it might not be what you want to hear. Its true value is to make us uncomfortable.
There's this great Spanish word for it, incomodidad, discomfort. The whole point is that philosophy isn't supposed to give you easy answers or make you feel all warm and fuzzy. Its real job is to make you question everything, to create this nagging sense of discomfort with the status quo.
And that's exactly why the philosopher can be seen as, well, a pretty threatening character. Think about it. Someone who is constantly asking, but why, is super inconvenient for a system that needs you to just accept things as they are. They're a real thorn in the side for the people who run, profit from, and totally depend on that market logic. So this discomfort isn't a bad thing at all. It's actually a really powerful tool. It's what gives us the ability to take a step back and challenge that voice in our heads, the one that tells us that everything, and I mean everything, from our time to our relationships to our own human spirit, has to have a price tag.
Okay, so where does all this leave us? What's the actual practical point of all this discomfort? Well, it's not about starting a revolution or overthrowing the system. It's about something much more personal, and maybe, just maybe, even more profound. And here we get to the absolute core of it, the real power of philosophy, right here, right now. Might not be about changing the world on the outside, like Marx wanted. Nope. Its most powerful effect is on the inside. It can completely change how you see things, your attitude, your whole disposition toward the world around you.
You know, the ancient Greeks had a brilliant way of thinking about this. They had two different words for knowledge. There was techne, that's the practical stuff, the know-how, how to build a chair, how to write code. The market absolutely loves techne. But then there was Sophia, that's wisdom. That's the pursuit of understanding just for the sake of it. It doesn't do anything, not in a practical sense. And that is exactly where its value lies.
So at the end of the day, by choosing Sophia, by changing our own outlook, philosophy gives us a way to push back. It lets us carve out a little space for ourselves, a space for human value that just can't be captured on a spreadsheet or given a price tag. And that's huge in a world that's trying so hard to measure and monetize every single second of our lives.
And that brings us full circle, right back to Pythagoras at that big fair. So I'll leave you with the same question to think about. In this huge, crazy fair of life, which one are you? Are you a merchant, there to make a profit? Are you a competitor, chasing after glory? Or are you an observer, just trying to watch, and maybe, just maybe, understand it all?